I'm JT Stone with the University at Albany's Office of Communications and Marketing. I recently spoke to UAlbany's new esports director, John Macone, about his work in the competitive gaming industry and his plans for the program's future. Here's our interview. The University at Albany is a leader in competitive gaming and one of the largest esports members of the Eastern College Athletic Conference, or ECAC. UAlbany has more than 150 students and 15 teams competing at the regional and national level. These teams compete with other schools in popular video games including Fortnite, Overwatch, Rocket League, and Super Smash Bros. The Great Danes notably won the Fall 2021 ECAC Esports Commissioners Cup. They've also gone on to win several national championships since the program's founding in 2019. On top of this, a new esports arena is being built at UAlbany's Uptown campus as the program continues to grow. Plus, a $1,000 merit scholarship was launched for select incoming UAlbany esports freshmen. John Macone is UAlbany's new esports director this semester. He has years of experience in the competitive gaming industry. Today I'm here with him to discuss what got him interested in online gaming, what he believes sets the Great Danes apart, and his goals for the program's future. Hey John, how are you doing today?
Pretty good, JT. Pretty good. How are you?
Terrific. So tell me, how did you first get started in esports?
So I was always a casual gamer at heart ever since I was a kid. Gaming was my hobby, my passion, alongside reading and a lot of other, media-based hobbies. And once I had gotten to late high school, I was actually inducted in a way by a friend into the fighting game community. So I was very into competing in the Street Fighter series and the Super Smash Brothers series in particular. And over the years, that had exposed me to the more modernized, right? What you all see now, if you look into esports or modern gaming, into all of those titles and communities. So that's how I got my introduction to it, and then it only got deeper over time.
I think that's such a cool way to start out in esports. I feel like everybody has a different connection to the field, because there's just such a wide variety of games out there and communities. And I'm curious as well, what made you choose UAlbany specifically, opposed to other colleges that have an esports program?
So you Albany interested me in particular. It was a bit twofold. So I have a little bit of history with Albany as a region. In my teenage years, my father did a contracting job, a roofing job on the State Museum. So I had come up back and forth a little bit. So it was a little serendipitous, but I was really fascinated and then really enthralled by UAlbany's commitment to diversity, inclusion, and equity practices in its programming and in its student body and its culture. And to me, I'm a community builder. That's what I focus on in my programs and in my own career. And that really speaks to me as something that was attractive about not just the institution, but something I wanted to be a cornerstone of my program. Any program I wanted to call my own, I wanted just about everyone to feel welcome and engaging with it. So that really drew me, the campus atmosphere and these ironclad commitments to those ideas really drew me to UAlbany.
I love that community building. I feel like when people think of esports, what do they think of? They think of hardcore
Mm-hmm.
gamers, maybe a more kind of individualistic environment. But as you're saying, it's a lot about community building.
Yeah, it is. It's a lot more. I always like to tell people, and it's hard until you see it for yourself, but it's a lot more than just people playing games, right? Games become a connector. Like any form of media, they become a connector to people and connectors to opportunities, to students they would never interact with, right? Without a common interest and countless other things. And it goes from a wide spectrum of like hyper competitive esports with teams and club level socializing with games and casual gaming and even just spectating games. All right. So that there's a lot to it. It's very multifaceted.
So, kind of bouncing off of that, can you tell me a little bit about UAlbany's esports program and why should students get involved?
Yeah, so UAlbany's esports program, they've done an amazing job. The student leadership is really phenomenal, and in that they've facilitated. You said it yourself. We have about 15 teams, and those are different skill level teams within multiple titles as well, right? Some games have more than one team, and it really allows for people to experiment with things like team building, team exercise, and competition in their favorite titles. But there's also a lot of opportunity here for club growth and social growth and club meetings for people who have an interest either in specific titles, gaming as a whole. That's something I hope to be a resource for any students that want to start things like that. And there are also a lot of opportunities to engage with all different kinds of career paths and working opportunities with a gaming spin if you're interested in gaming, right? So things like social media management or team management, coaching. We would like to do broadcasting very soon, and especially in the new space. And that would also be a great way for students to get involved if they're interested in things like shoutcasting. And there's a lot to be found here, kind of like a whole new world sort of setup for anyone with even a mild interest in gaming. And the pre-existing teams already are just an excellent, friendly, open community that's committed to both the rigors of competitive success and excellence and the warm, welcoming social environment you'd want during your time at college.
And can you tell me how can students actually get involved? What can they do? And also,
Mm-hmm.
what kinds of academic programs are available to students that are interested in competitive gaming?
So we don't currently have any formalized academic programs. The institution does, though. We do have, a really great gaming program for anyone who's interested in gaming majors along the AI track. But we also have, these are more so either volunteer opportunities or graduate assistantship with myself that I would like to develop in certain paths for our esports program. I encourage anyone who's curious about the esports program. They could reach out to me directly at Macone at albany.edu. Pretty easy to remember. Or esports at albany.edu also works, just in case. And alongside that, we will be setting up more public resources for people to understand how that they can get involved. We have an official UAlbany Esports program Discord server that we will be fleshing out more for regular student engagement so that people can really get their teeth in and get involved and get to know one another, especially over winter break and past while everyone's remote, right? And then once the new space is set up, it'll only go from there with a real place to live on campus.
Yeah, tell me about the new space. It sounds super exciting.
Yeah, I can't say too much yet about the new space, but I can say that it will be an open use facility for everyone on campus. So there won't be any restrictions on who can use the space on campus, who can use the PCs and hardware we have in there on campus, and it'll be a really great modern setup for everybody. It's looking to be a nice hangout space as well for people to come and socialize, hang out, enjoy, get comfortable and spectate what we've got going on. So we'll have a competitive area and a casual gaming area where once we have scheduled competitive matches, our teams will be able to use that space and people will be able to see them at work and really get an idea of what this competition is like. Cheer for us. Really get that Great Danes energy going. It'll be really exciting. I can't wait to show everybody more.
Definitely. I know for me, one of the things that surprised me is I didn't even realize we've had an esports program since 2019. Can you kind of
Mm-hmm.
catch me up and everyone else up just in terms of how the program has evolved since its founding?
Right. So originally, the program was essentially founded by a cooperation between the students and Mike Lazinski, who did a great job at recognizing their needs and elevating what they had going on in terms of students competing in games to something more programmatic, right, as their initial director. And during this transitionary period, a student took the reins named Aster Singe. He's great, phenomenal student who's going into his graduates now. Congratulations to him. A little shout out. But essentially, the makeup of the program has been these competitive teams around these titles. And the multi-divisional nature. So some teams, for example, League of Legends, we have an A team, a B team, a C team, right? So more than one team with different ranked divisionals based on their skill performance and their comfortability with each other and what they compete in. Some of them compete in different circuits. So we have, as you mentioned, ECAC, and there's also a SUNY League. So there is a SUNY League for SUNY state institutions that compete against each other across the season, and also national level competition like CLOL, C Valorant, that we are going to get more into, and I'm going to help the students sort of get more into on a consistent scheduled basis so that we can get more known on a national level for competition. But there's a lot to that, and a lot going on in the competitive team space in this program, which, like you said, is interesting, right? It's hard to know that we've had an esports program this whole time, but they've done an excellent job competing. They've been doing a lot of winning. We've got over 12 team. We've got about eight or so teams right now that have qualified for playoffs and are currently competing in playoffs, both in ECAC and in SUNY League. So that's exciting if you want to get a little hype for that. And then going forward, we want to put out more footage. We want people to be able to see the teams more, to see these games more. And then once the in-person space is completed, that's just going to be so much easier, right? So only more visibility from this point onward.
That's extremely exciting. I mean, those numbers are amazing. Now, kind of stepping back a bit and broadly speaking, I know you touched upon this a bit earlier in our conversation. Can you tell me, generally speaking, what are your top goals as the new esports director here at UAlbany?
So I've hinted at it a little bit already, but my top goals so far for this program, especially in the beginning, is visibility, making sure people can see what we do and understand what we do and get to know some of these students too, right? These student leaders I've been talking about. Definitely the visibility angle, getting our social media channels up and running and getting things nice and consistent so y'all can see what we're up to. Uh, Definitely enhancing what I call the programmatic structure of this program, right? If you want to look up a public resource on how this program is structured and where you might fit, you should be able to do so, right? And that's something we're going to be working on in short order, especially coming into the spring. And one thing I really want to work on, especially even before the space is built, is helping to connect these students to some opportunities. I want to look into ways that I can help elevate students that want to volunteer for things like growing out a club presence, helping out with socials, right? Helping out with event photography and things like that. I really want to use the existence of this program to help people find opportunity they may not normally find or engage in. And those are sort of the key starting pillars for us, but there are a lot of activities, a lot of angles in between. I mean, we'll be boothing at events, we'll be thinking of running events on our own once the space is built. There's going to be a lot going on for this program.
And I think too, I feel like when people think of sports, they think of traditional sports where you get out
Mhm.
and, onto the field and do perhaps, physically taxing things, but this, as you were saying, it's still a way to foster community and still, have a fulfilling kind of experience. And
Mhm.
one thing kind of in my research, I was very shocked by, I saw the gaming industry or the esports industry this year is worth over $1 billion. $1 billion. Why do you think online gaming has become as popular as it is?
Well, it's a great connector, right? And that's sort of a common theme we've been talking about. And it's also, of course, my personal perspective and experience. But I think for a lot of people, gaming becomes a hobby that grows in terms of what they experience with it. People meet countless people through online gaming. It's easy to do, it's relatively accessible, right? The accessibility is huge for online gaming. Lots of people can participate even in something like esports, which is more rigorous, right? With more rigorous standards for competition and competitive success. I mean, countless types of people can engage with this space that may not be able to engage with those other spaces as easily, right? There's that going on. It's really easy to get into particular titles. Heck, some titles are free, depending, right? Like League of Legends, one of the biggest titles on the planet. That's a free to play title. It's pretty easy to get into, runs on most hardware. So really, actually easy to get into. And, you know, it's another development and growth space. You know, if you play games casually, it's a fun way to engage with new and old friends in a different way that becomes regular for people, and it becomes an easy way to keep in touch with people. People get far apart, people have different things that happen or opportunities that happen. It's a way for them to stay connected. And when it comes to competition, it's just another way that the hobby grows. Just like, frankly, one of the biggest parallels to traditional sports is that, you know, you get into a sport when you're younger and you go through this path of growth, right? And it becomes something that you realize you want to stick with and you want to develop in and grow in. And it lives alongside your academia. It lives alongside your working life, right? Or becomes a part of it. Like, I mean, even in my case, right? Becomes a part of your working life. And there are many facets to it. I mean, we're talking about esports and the esports industry, but there's the gaming industry at large, and working in game development or working in marketing or working in business management and development or consulting, and all the angles that exist, right? In any other major media realm exist here. And collegiate esports becomes a way for us to engage with it and us to say, well, what does it look like at UAlbany, right? And what does that community look like? What does that program look like? So I think that attracts a lot of people, not just from a hobby perspective, but from a perspective of, you know, people who have varying interests in games just get to connect with each other when they normally wouldn't. And that becomes something you tie back to your interest in gaming. It becomes a self-fulfilling experience.
And it's also another skill set, right? I
Mm-hmm.
mean, teamwork, collaboration, problem solving, critical thinking. I know for me, frankly, when I was still learning what exactly is esports, is it just any online video games? Is it just video games in general? And no, it's much more kind of structured and organized than I had originally thought. I feel like we've kind of been touching upon this specific question all throughout our conversation. But what would you say, as an expert in the field, what would you say are some of the biggest misconceptions people have about esports and online
Mm-hmm.
gaming?
Well, we definitely touched on this misconception before, and this is the biggest one for people that have not seen it, aren't as familiar, don't really know somebody. It's not just people playing games. So the distinction between esports and casual gaming, or regular gaming, like I like to call it, is that esports is about growth, development, skill management, and consistent, well-meaning practice in a particular title for the goal of competitive growth, competitive strength, success, right? All the same benchmarks you hit in something like traditional sports. And even in collegiate esports, which is seen as a developing, very growth oriented space right now in the esports industry, that's exactly where it goes. So when we say esports, we're really talking about teams that commit weekly practice time, you know, scheduled practice time. They scrim against other schools. They do a lot of in-game research and out-of-game research on opponents, strategies for their titles. And esports has the unique factor of these are games. So they're active online games that are updated very often, that the teams need to keep up with those updates to the game. They have to be flexible in their strategies and their critical thinking skills to adapt to those changes to still be competitively viable. So if you can't see it, it is very hard for someone like a parent or someone else to know it's not just people playing games for the sake of playing games. It's a whole different culture to it in terms of why they're playing games, right? Or like what they do when they play games. And that's why one of my major upfront goals is visibility for this program, is to help people understand what exactly esports is, right? Without getting lost in the weeds of it. It's people playing games for the goal of self-development and for competitive success. That's a huge cornerstone of what esports is. And then the whole ecosystem around it, right? Of people enjoying that spectator experience and getting hyped for their teams and all that joy and love that goes across different titles being akin to different sports entirely, right? So that's one of the major misconceptions. And I think the other major misconception is that it doesn't, this notion of playing games doesn't really sync up with academic success. And one of the major components of esports that serves the student is that it is part of their life on campus. This is what they do on campus. This is in conjunction with their academia. It's not against their academia, so to speak. They're not in contention with one another for their time. So even in an open use facility like ours on campus would have regular hours and a well set structure to help students engage with their hobbies while also engaging with their academia. And for some students, even like for me in my own undergrad, my enjoyment of games became a way for me to deepen my relationship with my major. I was a journalism major at Rutgers University, and founding Rutgers Esports and going through all of the opportunities and shoutcasting and broadcasting and the like in Rutgers Esports directly tied back to my major as a journalism and media studies student and helped me retain that interest even when the going got tough, right? Academically, when things got hard, I didn't have this burnout period where I was just ready to leave it. And I think that serves a lot of students academically. I think those are the two largest misconceptions I run across.
Right. And as I said, I feel like more people in just doing research and just seeing the number of people who are interested, the amount of money that is just in this industry, and the fact that I think in a lot of ways it is the future of gaming, especially online gaming. And frankly, I have a lot of friends that love e-gaming, whether they're fans, they're watching it at home, they're watching it, on their couch, or they're actually going to events and cheering on, at the top of their lungs. It's truly a global phenomenon. Those are all the questions I have. I just want to say thank you so much for speaking with me. Can you just remind people listening how they can get involved again?
Yeah, absolutely. So for now, the best way to get involved is to reach out directly. And I would encourage anybody with questions, comments, concerns, intrigue for reaching out to about the program, what's going on, and how they can be a part of it. Just email me directly at jmacone@albany.edu or esports@albany.edu. Either one works. And you'll have me directly. And until going into the spring, we're going to make more details about how you can get involved public, like our Discord server and other materials you can use as a student to get involved, or even staff and faculty. I encourage to reach out to me and find ways we can explore the interest and see what makes sense. There are many ways that gaming and esports on campus can engage with you or what you're doing in ways you might not expect. And if you're a student on campus that wants to get into gaming, there are many like you, and all belong to this program.
Well, thank you so much. I'm JT Stone with the University at Albany's Office of Communications and Marketing. Thanks for listening.